What if everything you believed about your faith was just a shadow, a pale replica of the true gospel? Imagine thousands of people in crowded temples, arms raised in mechanical prayers, lips repeating words that have lost their meaning, hearts trapped in a routine of rituals that have become habit but not transformation. Visualize the light discreetly penetrating through the stained glass windows, a pure light that reveals details that no one dares to see, that illuminates the truth hidden behind superficial speeches and promises. Every gesture, every murmur of devotion seems sincere, but what if all of this is just a facade, an illusory comfort that avoids confronting what is really inside you? Have you ever felt that silent restlessness in your chest? That feeling that something is missing, even while fulfilling all the traditions, repeating the right words, and mingling with the crowd of believers? That is the agony of superficial faith, the silent conflict that the true gospel is about to expose. It's not about doubting God, but about doubting what you believe faith to be. There is a fine line between comfortable religiosity and living faith, a line that many avoid crossing, because the true gospel demands courage, demands honesty, demands bearing one's own soul before the light that reveals all. Think about those people who feel secure in their spiritual routines, who measure faith by the time spent in a temple, by the frequency of prayers, by the number of words recited. What if all this comfort is deceiving you? What if the faith you cultivate is like a weak candle in the midst of a storm, easily extinguished when confronted with the true essence of the gospel? The truth that illuminates is not decorative, it is not comfortable. It burns, it questions, it dismantles patterns, deconstructs certainties, and exposes the dark corners you never dared to face. Imagine the scene, crowded temples, chants echoing, but above all a light penetrating, revealing every mask, every heartless repeated act, every devotion that never touched the depths of being. It is in this light that superficial faith cannot withstand, that comfort crumbles, that true spirituality begins to emerge. There is no way to ignore it. That which is superficial gives way to that which is real. And this transition is not subtle. It is shocking, disturbing, but absolutely necessary. Are you ready to face this light? Are you prepared to realize that what you considered solid, safe, sacred may be just a shadow? That all the security of superficial faith can dissolve before the true gospel? This is the unease we want to awaken. This is the spark that ignites deep reflection, the first crack in the wall of comfort that many build around themselves. And as you observe these images, feel the weight of this question. Is everything you've believed until now truly faithful to the truth, or just a pale reflection of something much greater, much more intense, much more transformative? The light is there, revealing, confronting, inviting. And now, before you look away, before your mind seeks excuses, it's time to stay, to face it, to begin to ask yourself what it means to have true faith. Before we continue, pause for a moment and reflect on what you have just heard. If this question resonated with you, if this light has begun to reveal something that was previously hidden, leave your like now, to show that you are ready to face the truth. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of this spiritual journey, where we will delve deep into the true gospel and confront every shadow of superficial faith. Now get ready, because the next step will reveal even more than you ever imagined. Have you ever stopped to observe how many people live a superficial, comfortable, almost mechanical faith, limited to rituals and repeated words without touching the heart? It's as if they are trapped behind an invisible veil, a veil that covers their eyes and prevents them from seeing the depth of what God truly offers. Inside these crowded temples, inside religious gatherings, we see raised arms, chants sung, prayers murmured with fervor. But something is missing. There is a silent feeling, a restlessness that we often try to ignore because confronting it means confronting ourselves, our own beliefs, our own limitations. And it is precisely in this space of apparent comfort that superficial faith settles in, creating a wall between man and the divine, a barrier that separates us from pure truth, from the genuine transformation that only the true gospel can bring about. While many are content with empty words and automatic behaviors, repeating memorized formulas, a silent calling arises, a light that penetrates this comfortable routine and exposes what is truly happening within the soul. That's when the shock sets in, realizing that all the security, all the feeling of being right, maybe just a facade, is a moment of spiritual agony. You feel an inner tension, as if every ritual you practiced, every prayer you repeated without involvement, begins to crumble before the light of the true gospel. And the feeling of vulnerability is intense, almost painful, because now you realize you were trusting in something that never truly touched your essence, that never changed your soul, that never brought about real transformation. Transformative faith is different. It is not content with appearances. It does not accept mechanical words or automatic gestures. It demands surrender, courage, and honesty. It requires you to look inside yourself, to face the shadows you have tried to hide, to recognize yourself as vulnerable, imperfect, often weak, but still willing to align yourself with divine truth. While superficial faith comforts and maintains routine, deep faith confronts, questions, provokes restlessness, and does not allow you to continue as before. And it is in this clash that transformation begins. Each time the light of the true gospel touches the soul, the veil tears a little more, the wall begins to crumble, and the mirror that reveals falsehood reflects what needs to be faced for growth to occur. Imagine looking at your own life and realizing that, many times, you repeated patterns of faith without truly feeling them, without truly committing to what God wanted to teach. How many times have you prayed prepared words, sung hymns automatically, participated in services and meetings without realizing that your soul was distant, that your faith was complacent and superficial? Now feel the weight of this realization, but also the opportunity it brings, because it is precisely in this discomfort that the possibility of a true, intense, living connection with the gospel is born. It's like waking up from a comfortable dream and realizing that there is a whole world of depth, intensity, and spiritual power that you have never explored. And it's not just about practice or appearance, it's about perceiving the paradox between human comfort and divine truth. What society and religious routine offer is security, predictability, a sense of belonging, but this often comes at the cost of spiritual depth. Superficial faith keeps you safe, but doesn't transform you. The true gospel doesn't promise immediate comfort. It challenges, confronts, dismantles internal structures, and makes you look directly at your own soul. And it is precisely this confrontation that provokes agony and restlessness, that opens space for a faith that is alive, that is powerful, that withstands time and trials. Every heartless repeated gesture, every word spoken without commitment, every habit that doesn't touch the essence of being, are like masks that keep you distant from the truth. And upon realizing this, you begin to feel fear, a mixture of dread and excitement, because you know that the superficial faith you've built up until now will not withstand the light of the true gospel. It is at this moment that consciousness awakens, and you feel the urgency to question, to reflect, to seek something that truly transforms. And it is this shock, this restlessness that captures your attention, that makes your heart race and your mind open to the truth. As you watch this light penetrate your habits, rituals, and empty words, imagine the transformation that could occur if you allowed your faith to be challenged, confronted, and rebuilt. Each layer of superficiality that falls away reveals a new space for surrender, for understanding, for intimacy with the divine that was previously hidden. Deep faith is not comfortable, but it is liberating because it brings you face to face with the truth, with your own essence, and with the purpose God planned. And now I want you to reflect. How many times have you deceived yourself into believing that repeating words, gestures, or rituals was enough? How many times have you feigned connection when, in reality, you were distant? Write in the comments your first reaction to this realization. If you have ever felt this unease, if you have ever realized that something within your faith needed to be confronted, I want you to share, because your reflection can inspire others who are facing the same challenge. When the light of the true gospel begins to pierce the shadows of superficial faith, everything changes. It's not a timid glimmer or a partial illumination. It's a clarity that invades every corner of the soul, penetrating the most comfortable beliefs, the most repetitive habits, the excuses we use to keep ourselves safe and calm. Revelation doesn't come as a gentle suggestion. It comes as an inevitable shock, a direct confrontation with the spiritual reality you've often avoided facing. And it is at this moment that superficial faith crumbles, that every foundation built of appearances, routine, and empty words begins to tremble. You feel this inner agony, this mixture of fear and excitement, because you know that nothing will be the same after the truth touches your heart. The transformation is intense because the true gospel is not limited to correcting minor flaws. It purifies, confronts, and rebuilds. Imagine that every layer of superficiality you've carried, every gesture repeated without understanding, every memorized prayer, every mechanical devotion is ripped away, revealing the genuine faith that has always been hidden, but which you never dared to access. It's as if light pierced the veil that covered your eyes for years, illuminating the dark corners you feared to face. This light reveals not only what was wrong, but also what can be rebuilt. It reveals that living faith is powerful, that it doesn't depend on appearances, but on true surrender, the courage to confront, the willingness to transform. You feel this change internally, like a current of spiritual energy coursing through every thought, every memory, every emotion. The revelation is not just mental, it is physical, emotional, and spiritual. You realize that superficial faith offered comfort, but never freedom, that the rituals that once seemed sacred were merely shadows of what the gospel truly proposes. And now, faced with this revelation, a shock arises that leads to hope. A shock that is necessary to awaken the sleeping heart, to make you realize that transformation is possible, that reconnection with divine truth is within reach of all who are willing to face their own reflection in the mirror of the soul. Meanwhile, the image becomes vivid. Light piercing through dense shadows, penetrating temples and hearts, people awakening with reverence, eyes full of understanding, hands open to receive what they previously ignored. The inner transformation is not silent. It manifests in courage, in attitudes, in choices that reflect the true gospel. It is the realization that every decision aligned with the light possesses power. Every act of authentic surrender resonates in the spiritual universe, and every heart that chooses to walk in truth becomes a beacon of living faith, illuminating not only itself, but also those around it. It is as if the superficial faith, which previously seemed sufficient, turns to dust before the fire of truth, and from the dust arises something much greater. A faith that does not depend on circumstances, that is not content with the minimum, that challenges and transforms. And in this process, you begin to perceive the contrast in an even deeper way, the difference between the safety of appearances and the risk of authenticity, between mechanical routine and total surrender, between faith that deceives itself and faith that truly moves the spirit. The true gospel does not spare, it demands. It promises not only comfort, but transformation. It does not settle for superficiality. It invades, confronts, dismantles, and rebuilds. Every soul that allows this light to penetrate feels the purification happening, feels faith growing from within, and perceives the power that arises when the truth is finally embraced without reservation. As you visualize this light piercing through shadows, also see how it awakens courage. People who once hid behind rituals, who were content with empty words, now stand up firmly, their eyes shining with the intensity of genuine faith. It is a visible transformation, not only felt, but also perceived externally. Every gesture, every action, every thought begins to reflect the truth that now resides in the heart. It is the necessary shock that provokes hope. It is the confrontation that generates growth. It is the truth that rebuilds and empowers. And while all this is happening, I want you to pause and think, how have you been living your own faith? Is it being genuine or just superficial? Write your reflections in the comments. Share your experiences. Say if you've ever felt that inner restlessness that indicates something needs to change. I want you to get involved, to participate, because this journey isn't just mine, nor just the videos. It's yours too. Comment, "Yes, I want truth," if you're ready to face your faith head-on and allow the true gospel to transform your life in a real and powerful way. Now that you've begun to perceive the difference between superficial faith and living faith, it's time to go even deeper, to feel the impact of each layer being removed, of each mask falling before the light of the true gospel. It's not just about discovering errors or flaws, but about confronting your own soul, feeling the shock of what was previously hidden, realizing that many times you lived comfortably deceived, repeating ready-made formulas, mechanical gestures, prayers that didn't touch your heart. And while this happens, the true light penetrates, burns, purifies, and reveals what was always there, but which you never dared to face. It's an intense, almost disconcerting process, because confronting one's own superficiality isn't easy. It's an experience that mixes fear, agony, and excitement all at once. Imagine for a moment a silent temple, where every human gesture seems ritualized, programmed without true surrender, while an intense light pierces the shadows and reveals the essence of what is real. Each person becomes aware of the difference between what resembles faith and what truly is faith. Every automatic prayer, every memorized word, every meaningless repeated gesture proves insufficient, empty, incapable of touching the soul. It is in this contrast that the necessary shock arises, the perception that what previously seemed sufficient, safe, and acceptable is merely a shadow, an illusion of spirituality, a deceptive security that prevents true transformation. And at that moment, you feel a deep unease, an inner agitation that you can't ignore. Because the truth of the gospel doesn't settle. It doesn't accept that you settle for the minimum, for the superficial. It demands courage. It demands total surrender. It demands that you face yourself, that you look at your own mistakes, your own habits, your own spiritual inconsistency. That's the difference between faith that merely fills spaces and faith that transforms lives, that molds character, that brings true peace and power. It's the difference between continuing in a comfortable routine and allowing the true gospel to enter and make profound, radical, necessary changes. As the light of the true gospel spreads, you begin to feel a reconstruction happening from the inside out. Each layer of superficiality that falls away makes room for a faith that is powerful, that withstands trials, that is not limited to words or rituals, but manifests itself in actions, thoughts, decisions, and attitudes. It is a faith that challenges itself to grow, that seeks consistency, that aligns itself with truth, not appearances. It is at this moment that the transformation becomes visible. Eyes that were once closed to depth now see. Hearts that were once asleep now awaken. Hands that once repeated mechanical gestures now rise in genuine surrender. And you realize, perhaps for the first time, that every small choice, every act of faith, every decision to live according to the truth has power. Power for personal transformation, power to influence others, power to align yourself with something greater than yourself. It's an intense, almost electric feeling of realizing that superficiality not only disappears, but that its place is taken by a real, palpable living faith. It is the confrontation that generates hope, that gives strength to move forward, that creates courage to continue, even when everything inside you screams to return to the comfort of routine and false security. Meanwhile, the image in your mind becomes clearer. Light piercing through dense shadows, penetrating temples, homes and hearts. People awakening with reverence, eyes shining with intensity, hands open to receive the truth that has always been available but never fully recognized. Every soul that allows this light to penetrate feels the shock, but also feels the reconstructive power that arises from it. Every heart that decides to align itself with the true gospel becomes a beacon of living faith, a light capable of illuminating not only its own life but also the lives of those around it. And it is at this point that I want you to pause, take a deep breath and reflect. How have you been living your faith until today? Is it genuine or merely superficial? Have you ever noticed moments when you repeated words without feeling, gestures without believing, habits without purpose? I want you to write in the comments your first impressions. Share if you have ever felt this inner restlessness that reveals that something needs to change. Comment, "I am ready for the truth," if you feel you are willing to allow the real gospel to transform your life from the inside out. Share your experience, because by doing so, you not only commit to your own journey, but also inspire others who are facing the same need to confront superficial faith. And now, after feeling the impact of the light piercing the shadows of superficial faith, it's time to dive even deeper, to perceive the reach of the true gospel on human life, to see how it confronts every detail, every thought, every habit that previously seemed harmless, but which in reality was keeping you away from the transformation God desires to bring about. It's not just about noticing superficial errors, but about feeling an inner change that goes beyond understanding, that reaches the very essence of your soul, opening space for the divine to penetrate, restructure, and renew. It's an intense, almost physical process, an energy that runs through every fiber of your being, provoking discomfort, restlessness, and at the same time, a hope that was previously dormant. As the light of the true gospel spreads, you realize how many automatic actions that once resembled faith were in fact just shadows. Every prayer repeated without real involvement, every mechanical gesture of devotion, every word you recited without feeling, all of this begins to crumble before the spiritual clarity that allows nothing to be hidden. And the shock is inevitable, because realizing how many times you lived deceived, even in good faith, is uncomfortable. But it is this discomfort that provokes transformation, that leads the soul to open up, that destroys superficiality to reveal a living, deep, powerful, and transformative faith. The true gospel is not content with appearances. It does not accept that you are satisfied with empty gestures, automatic prayers, promises made only with your lips and not with your heart. It demands courage. It demands surrender. It demands that you face your own soul, your flaws, your limitations, your masks. It is in this process of confrontation that the faith that truly moves the spirit is born, the faith that transforms attitudes, decisions, thoughts, and relationships. Each layer of superficiality that falls reveals something much greater. The opportunity to rebuild, to align yourself with the truth, to live with a spiritual intensity and authenticity that you may never have experienced before. And the transformation doesn't just happen internally. It manifests externally in how you act, how you relate to others, how you face challenges, and how you express your faith in the world. Now imagine the scene. People who previously repeated mechanical gestures, memorized prayers, and empty traditions, now awakening with reverence, eyes shining with understanding, hands open to receive the truth that has always been available. Each soul illuminated by the true gospel begins to radiate faith, to show strength, courage, and determination that cannot be ignored. It is a visible, palpable change that is not limited to the inner self, but impacts everything around it, creating a chain of transformation that can reach others, inspire others, and change realities. Upon realizing this transformation, you feel a mixture of agony and fascination. Agony at realizing how many times superficial faith has deceived you, how many opportunities for growth have been lost, how many moments when the true gospel could have transformed your life were neglected, and fascination because now the truth is before you, ready to be embraced, ready to rebuild, ready to awaken a powerful, unwavering, and profound faith. It is in this contrast that spiritual tension becomes fuel for change. It is in this clash that the opportunity arises to be born again, to align every thought, every word, and every action with divine truth. And as you experience this revelation, also notice how the light of the true gospel illuminates not only your own life, but also the lives of those around you. Each person who allows this transformation to happen becomes a beacon, an example of living faith, a presence that radiates courage, integrity, spiritual honesty, and authenticity. And it is impossible to remain indifferent to this energy. It provokes reflection, introspection, questioning about your own choices, your own attitudes, your own patterns of behavior. You begin to understand that superficial faith maintains in you a sense of illusory security, but does not provide real strength, and that only total surrender to the truth of the gospel allows faith to become powerful, resilient, unshakable in the face of trials and challenges. While all this is happening, I want you to get involved, to actively participate in the reflection. Think about your own spiritual life and the times when superficial faith has tried to deceive you. What mechanical gestures, what repeated words, what habits have you allowed to replace a true connection with God? Write your experiences in the comments. Share if you have ever felt that inner restlessness that indicates something needs to change. If you have ever noticed moments when the spiritual routine seemed to fill the void but didn't transform. Comment, I have awakened to the truth. If you feel you are ready to allow the real gospel to transform your life from the inside out. Sharing your experience not only helps you consolidate this reflection, but also inspires other people who are seeking the same spiritual authenticity. And remember, this transformation is not instantaneous. It is not simple, but it is powerful. Every moment of confrontation with superficiality, every realization of error or empty habit, every shock that the true gospel provokes in your soul is an opportunity for reconstruction. It is the beginning of an intense journey of deep faith, of total surrender, of alignment with the truth, and it is precisely at this point that we will continue, exploring how the light of the gospel continues to penetrate, rebuilding and strengthening every aspect of your spiritual life. And now, as you feel the full force of the true gospel piercing the shadows of superficial faith, it's time to realize the full impact of this revelation on your life. Every fragment of automatic habit, every word repeated without feeling, every ritual that once seemed sufficient, now appears fragile in the light of truth. It's as if the veil has been completely torn, and behind it you clearly see the extent of the faith that truly transforms. The faith that is not content with appearances, that does not accept the deceptive comfort of superficiality, but demands total surrender. courage to expose oneself, and willingness to rebuild one's own soul. This light not only illuminates, it confronts, it questions, it transforms. It reveals what was hidden, what you may have tried to ignore for years, but which is now impossible to hide. As the revelation intensifies, you realize it's not just about changing habits or words. It's about a profound reconstruction, a complete spiritual reinvention. Every decision made to date, every choice that seemed small or irrelevant, begins to be seen from a new perspective. Everything is evaluated, questioned, confronted. The superficial faith that once seemed secure now proves insufficient, and the feeling is uncomfortable because it demands that you face your own life with absolute sincerity. It's a confrontation with yourself, with your fears, with your flaws, with your limitations, but it's also an encounter with hope, with the power of transformation, with the opportunity of a faith that is alive, potent, and capable of withstanding any trial. Imagine for a moment the inner scene of your soul, shadows dissipating, barriers crumbling, masks falling, revealing a truth that can no longer be ignored. At every instant, you feel the power of the true gospel, rebuilding what was broken, illuminating what was hidden, and awakening a courage that perhaps never existed before. Every thought, every word, every gesture begins to reflect the truth that now resides in your heart. And this transformation is not only internal, it manifests externally in the way you behave, in the decisions you make, in the intensity with which you live, in the way you connect with God and with the people around you. At the same time, you realize that this light is not temporary or superficial. It takes root, strengthens, and creates deep roots in the soul. Every action aligned with this truth grows in impact. Every choice made from this transformative faith reverberates, influences, and shapes your life in a lasting way. It is the construction of a faith that cannot be shaken by external circumstances, criticism, or moments of difficulty. It is the construction of a faith that manifests itself in the courage to act, in the determination to live according to the truth, in the willingness to confront what previously went unnoticed. It is the complete reconstruction of who you are, based on solid principles, aligned with the gospel that truly transforms. As you absorb this insight, begin to reflect on its impact on your daily life. How many times have you settled for empty words? How many times have you allowed superficial habits to define your faith? How many times have you confused comfort with transformation? Now, faced with this revelation, it is impossible to turn back without recognizing the need for change. It is at this point that consciousness awakens, that introspection becomes vital, and that the question naturally arises: am I truly living the faith that God wants me to live? Am I ready to allow my soul to be rebuilt, my actions to reflect the true gospel, my life to align with the light of truth? And it is precisely at this point that I want you to actively participate. Stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and write in the comments your first impressions of this transformation. Share if you have already felt the restlessness that indicates your faith needs to be challenged, if you have already noticed moments when you repeated gestures or words without truly connecting with God. Comment, "Ready for the truth," if you wish to allow this light to continue penetrating your life, if you wish to rebuild every area of your faith in a genuine and profound way. Remember, by sharing your reflections, you not only strengthen your own journey, but also inspire others who are seeking the same spiritual authenticity, who are ready to abandon superficial faith and embrace the transformation that the true gospel provides. As you reflect on this, also feel the strength that comes from the certainty that true faith not only confronts, but rebuilds. Every small revelation, every inner shock, every realization of one's own superficiality is a step towards a powerful, active, vibrant faith. This faith is not content with the minimum. It demands total surrender. but in return offers strength, clarity, connection with the divine, and the ability to positively influence the world around you. It is the power of spiritual reconstruction, of complete transformation, of faith that touches life in a tangible and visible way that cannot be ignored. Now, as this light continues to penetrate, I want you to interact. Write in the comments if you have ever felt this confrontation between appearance and truth. If you have ever realized that some spiritual practices that previously seemed sufficient were only shadows of what God truly desires. Comment, "I have awakened to the light," if you are ready to allow this revelation to completely transform your life. Share your experiences, because your reflection can awaken others who are seeking the same spiritual depth, who are ready to abandon superficiality and embrace the faith that truly transforms. And now, as each fragment of your superficial faith crumbles before the light of the true gospel, you begin to perceive something that goes beyond immediate understanding. It is not just an inner transformation that occurs. It is a change that reverberates in every decision, in every thought, in every action you take. Every gesture that was once automatic now becomes conscious. Every memorized word is now chosen. Every mechanical prayer now becomes a genuine dialogue with God. You feel the intensity of this confrontation, the impact it has, and at the same time, you perceive the strength that arises when the soul surrenders to the truth that illuminates, corrects, and rebuilds. It is as if the very essence of what it means to have faith is being redefined before your eyes, revealing that superficial faith was never enough to sustain the power of what God truly desires to accomplish in your life. Meanwhile, mental images become more vivid. Temples once crowded, filled with repetitive movements and automatic gestures, now transformed into spaces of true presence. People awakening with reverence, eyes shining with profound understanding, hands open to receive what was once only a concept, but is now a real experience. Every heart that allows itself to be touched by this light feels the shock and the transformation simultaneously, an agony that brings hope, a deconstruction that generates reconstruction, a purification that allows living faith to finally flourish. It is in this contrast that you perceive the depth of the gospel, the difference between what seems to be faith and what truly is faith, and how much each of us needs to shed superficiality to connect with what is genuine, authentic, and powerful. And this transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It creates a domino effect, a movement of change that begins within you but reaches everyone around you. Every word spoken with truth, every action aligned with living faith, every decision made in the light of the gospel reflects, inspires, and provokes others to question their own superficial practices. It's impossible to remain indifferent to this energy. It awakens curiosity, anguish, reflection, and a deep desire for change that cannot be ignored. It's proof that the true gospel not only confronts but activates, mobilizes, transforms. And this transformation is contagious, radiating beyond you, reaching families, communities, generations. As you absorb this insight, it's essential to ask yourself how much of your faith is still superficial, how many automatic gestures, how many repeated words, how many practices you considered sacred are still just shadows of what God truly desires. This question is not merely rhetorical. It should provoke intense introspection, continuous reflection, and the need to act. Every person who allows themselves to confront their own superficiality feels the power of the true gospel, feels the courage that arises from understanding, feels the strength to live according to the truth that transforms. It is an energy that motivates, that propels, that awakens to a faith that is active, dynamic, resilient, and profound. And it is at this point that I want you to interact directly. Share your experience in the comments. Comment if you have felt this confrontation. If you have noticed that automatic habits or empty words have dominated your faith for too long, comment "Ready for transformation" if you want to allow the true gospel to continue penetrating your life, rebuilding, purifying, and strengthening every aspect of your heart and mind. Don't just watch the video, participate, reflect, write, because your reflection activates not only your own transformation, but also inspires others to seek the genuine faith that transforms lives. As you reflect on this, also visualize the strength of this living faith growing. Every conscious action, every decision made in alignment with truth, every total surrender that once seemed impossible now becomes possible and powerful. It is the manifestation of a faith that is not content with the minimum, that is not limited to mechanical gestures, that does not accept superficiality. It is the faith that defies circumstances, that withstands trials, that illuminates the path, that strengthens the soul and connects you directly with God. And as you feel this transformation, also feel the urgency. The true gospel does not wait. It confronts, it demands, it transforms here and now, and every moment of hesitation is a lost opportunity for reconstruction and alignment with the light. So before we conclude, I want you to reflect deeply. How will your faith be shaped from now on? Will you remain in the comfort zone of superficiality, or will you allow yourself to be confronted, purified, and rebuilt by the true gospel? Comment, "Yes, I'm ready." If you are determined to live this transformative faith, if you wish to abandon appearances and embrace the authenticity that moves and transforms. Share your experiences, inspire others, and remember, every reflection, every comment, every conscious act of surrender is a step towards a faith that not only exists, but impacts, transforms, and leaves a legacy. And in the meantime, don't forget to reinforce your participation. Like the video, if you felt this unease, if you perceived the difference between superficiality and real faith, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations that will continue to challenge, confront, and transform your spiritual life. This is the point where reflection meets action, where provocation transforms into transformation, and where you begin to live the faith that truly has power, authenticity, and impact, leaving behind any shadow of what seemed to be enough, but never was.